Hi, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 and other stuff, but mostly Pathfinder 2, or PF2. So today I'm going to be talking about a blog post that was made on the Paizo blog by James Case about the remastered Witch. Because I love the Witch, and I'm really excited about the remaster, I want to talk about it today. So I have personal investment in the Witch, but also I just think it's a really fun idea for a class, and I like the intricacies of how its mechanics work. So today I'm going to talk about the remaster and opinions I have about things that James Case said. And also, after that, I'm going to be talking about details that came out during PaizoCon about the Witch and the Patron abilities. Cool. So the name of the blog post was Witch, You're a Remastered Witch. Which, of course, I just heard in the voice of children screaming it. I'm not crazy, that's from Practical Magic. So here are some excerpts that I can speak to. The Witch is a really iconic fantasy theme with a ton of historical and cultural grounding and a popular player archetype for many characters. Yes. It has a lot of historical and cultural grounding. It's not just like what I think of as the Witch as Wicca, at least in my personal life. The person that is the outlier of society, living away from the others, who has gathered their own wisdom and uses it to reach the spirit world or assist their people with medical benefits, has basis in every culture that I can think of. So it's something for everybody. So it goes on to say, unfortunately, we were also aware that the Witch class has not quite always done the best at living up to this fantasy. True. For lots of reasons. The remaster sees the Witch as one of the most heavily changed classes in ways that aim both to increase the class's overall power budget, as well as to express the Witch's unique flavor in an evocative way. To highlight the fact that the Witch is the premier familiar user in the game, we've increased the capabilities of their familiar from its original version. Now the Witch's familiar gains even more abilities, one of which is wholly unique to the patron. These unique familiar abilities both help to express the patron's theme, and they generate a passive effect every time the Witch casts or sustains one of their Hex Cantrips. I'm going to go over a lot of these at the end, but one example that is mentioned in the article, blog post, is Silence in Snow. The familiar granted by the Silence in Snow patron is forever cold to the touch. It might be the color of ice, or its breath might crystallize in the air. And so every time you cast or sustain one of your hex spells, frost will form next to your familiar, creating difficult terrain. It goes on to say, many of these abilities are very strong, but have very short ranges from your familiar, so be sure to keep your little Shadowcat or Cursed Raven safe with spells like Phase Familiar or Patron's Puppet, which can help to shield them from damage or let them dart quickly in and out of safety. Phase Familiar, yes, obviously. Patron's Puppet, that's a little higher level. I'm going to be mentioning, I think that generally people don't play past 10th level. I know that's really common in 5e, D&D, but also just like people start at first level or third level. I started a group at 5th level because, frankly, I really like 5th level. It feels like that's when the game actually begins. And I've started people at 10th level. Aside from that, you really don't get to the higher levels. So the higher level Witch powerful abilities that they're adding don't matter for most people. It's a little bitch I have about the Witch. It's a witch bitch. The blog post goes on to say, we've taken advantage of the remaster to also do some general quality of life changes to the Witch and make their abilities a little easier to use. Many Hex Cantrips now no longer make enemies temporarily immune to their effects once cast, as we felt that having to sustain them and having the limit of 1 Hex Cantrip per turn. It turns out your patron doesn't like being pestered for supernatural favors 3 times in a 6-second window, was already enough of a limit for most abilities. We also expanded some Hex Cantrips that were overly narrow, like Wilding Word. Thank God, that thing sucks. Which used to function only against animals, fungi, or plants, which is why it sucks. But now function against any creature, with animals, fungi, and plants being especially vulnerable to its effects. Awesome! Yes! Patron's Presence is a level 14 feat for the witch. Your patron can direct its attention through your familiar, and its mere presence becomes an ominous weight on the minds of other beings to distract them and blot out their magic. Your familiar gains the following activity: Patron's Presence 2 action aura, frequency once per hour. Effect: a palpable weight extends from your familiar in a 15-foot emanation. Enemies who enter or start their turn within the aura must succeed at a will save against your spell DC or become stupefied 2 as long as they remain within the aura, or stupefied 3 under critical failure. The aura lasts until the end of your next turn, but the familiar can sustain it up to 1 minute. Okay, so first off, it's a will save that you're using against casters, which they're good at those saves, to inflict a condition that does screw casters. Cool. But your familiar has to be within 15 feet of them, which also puts them in danger. I think that they could require a fortitude save instead, like the bell for the thaumaturge. You all know how much I love the bell. If you don't, I'll put the thaumaturge video at the end of this. One of them. There's like a whole bunch of thaumaturge videos, like the witch videos now. They could have just tweaked this a little bit to make it better. And level 14, like I said, it just doesn't... At that point, it has to be really awesome to be interesting enough to me to say that's a good feat or good feature of the class. Like, you can make an interdimensional space, or you can, like some legends of witches, you can walk into a lake and teleport through it. Yes, I know, that's a druid spell in 3rd edition D&D, maybe in others too. But something really awesome like that just, like, other people could do anyway at about this level, but it's a cool, flashy feature. I'm rambling. The post goes on to say, beyond some of these feats that lean on the Pathfinder side of witch mythology, we also wanted to go back to the rich folklore of witches worldwide and draw on this when we were giving witches new feats, and they're getting quite a fair number of them. It would be remiss of me not to call out my very witchy colleagues Simone D. Saye. I don't know how to pronounce that actually. Saleh? And Shay Snow, who drew on their deep knowledge of folk magic to suggest the seeds that grew into abilities like Ceremonial Knife, which allows a knife or dagger to direct magical energies like a magic wand. Yes! Ritual daggers! And the new Iron Teeth Witches armaments, supplementing eldritch nails and living hair. Finally, changelings could take it. Why couldn't a witch have iron teeth? God! Baba Yaga, Ginny Green Teeth, the hags and witches of folklore and of role-playing games need these elements, or they just don't feel like a witch. I don't want to have to take a changeling to make my witch feel like a witch, which I've done. Anyway. Also, they have a feat called Witch's Broom, which lets you anoint a broom with flying ointments to transform it into a flying broomstick that you can ride through the night sky. Yes! I hope it's not just at night. This also works with a staff, polearm, or other broom-like object. Not saying there are vacuum cleaners in Galarian, but I am saying the book gives you what you need to live your best Mary Sanderson life. Hocus pocus. Silly. So, there are theories that state that the concept of witches flying through the air was actually from getting high off of some oils that they would rub all over their bodies during their ritual practices. And also, it could be interpreted that they seemed like they were trying to fly when they were doing rituals about making corn grow by jumping. Okay. I like the idea of the broom oils also allowing you to, like, have this euphoric experience, maybe even just while on the broom. That would be fun. Fine. All right, so we're leaving the blog post now, but I'm not done. It ends with The Shadow Remains cast, James Case. That was a cute ending. And like in Wicca, they say the circle is open but unbroken. So it's like the same thing. A quick word on unique patron-based familiar powers. Your familiar gets an ability based on the patron that activates when you cast or sustain a hex. Like the Fervor patron, which is now Faith's Flamekeeper, grants temporary hit points to a willing creature within 15 feet. Which makes a lot of sense with Divine Caster, and it's useful. And this takes effect every round that you cast or sustain a hex. If you're healing, temporary hit points are great. A witch is a better healer this way. I'm not saying it's better than a cleric because you get extra healing spells as a cleric, but still, they're a better healer. It's sort of like the druid from World of Warcraft. It allows you to fit into roles better with this change, with these changes. So anyway, the patron that used to be Rune, which is now the Inscribed one, lets your familiar flank an enemy. Alright, like runes or little glyphs or whatever kind of graphical effect surrounds the familiar and they get distracting. Yes, it is really cool to be able to flank with your familiar. But then your familiar's in combat. They really need to have some extra abilities that are going to protect the familiar besides, I'll take the damage for that familiar by spending a focus point. I hope there's like a little bump in AC or hit points for a witch's familiar specifically, because they are trying to throw their familiar within 15 feet of enemies. If not, I think I'm personally gonna homebrew that, because it's necessary to allow the witch to feel comfortable using their abilities that they're given. So the Resentment patron, which is an occult tradition patron, extends the duration of a negative condition on an enemy by 1 round when you do the hex thing, sustain or cast. Cool. That's really useful in so many different situations. Like, it can even be used if your fighter is good at demoralizing and you just extend that condition. Doesn't have to be magic. The Silence in Snow patron, which was the Winter patron, causes difficult terrain until the start of your next round with ice on the ground. I mentioned that one earlier from the blog. Spinner of Threads patron. It's another occult tradition patron. Probably the Fate one, obviously. The Fate patron from previous to this. Gives a creature within 15 feet of the familiar +1 or -1 to AC until the start of your next turn. So it can help an ally or hurt an enemy. Or hurt an ally or help an enemy, I guess, if you want to be a jerk. Starless Shadow, formerly Night patron, makes someone frightened 1 if they're adjacent to the familiar and the familiar is concealed, hidden, or undetected. But that's still amazing. You can, and okay. Conditions matter a lot in this system, and making different creatures frightened because your familiar is nearby, great. And if they're concealed, hidden, or undetected, then they're also a little protected from being damaged. So this is a very useful one. The ability sort of implies that it's already going to be protected somehow. Okay, there's that. That's cool. The Wilding Steward, formerly Wild Patron, gives the familiar either scent, imprecise, scent, tremor sense, or wave sense in 60 feet until the start of your next turn, and it can immediately point out as a free action, which is great because people don't point out because it takes an action. So giving somebody the ability to see something really well and then giving them a free action to point out, awesome. I would probably want this ability. Like, can I mix and match? That's what I would like to see from the Witch in the future. Have lists of different categories of abilities and be able to mix and match, because then you can more easily tell a story. In fact, I guess I'd probably just go with that myself. So any of you players who are going to be playing with me, if you want to play a witch, we're going to mix and match stuff if you want. That's fine. Play what you want to play. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. I watched the No-Nat version of this, and Sly Flourish? Crap. What's the name of that? It's probably on the screen now, because I'm an idiot. Anyway, Underhill told me about it in Discord. I watched his video first, the 5-minute one, and it just wasn't all that informative, so I wanted to give you a little bit more of my perspective. I am so grateful that Paizo is trying to use the history of our world, which has inspired these myths and fables and folklore that have become our mythology and our games, our concepts of how we can interact with the world in a magical way, by including things like an athame, or whatever you call it from your tradition, whatever it is. Like, there's also a ritual knife that's used to gather things, so it's only used to cut like herbs that are used for a magical purpose, and that's a boline. It's a white-handled knife instead of a black-handled knife. So I wonder if they could do something like that. I don't know, maybe that wouldn't be a feature, maybe it's just a thing you do if you want to be a Wicca Witch. Thank you for being here. If you have ideas about how you would alter the new remaster changes, please say so in the comments. I'm not just curious, but I'm going to be changing them for myself and people that play with me. So I'd like to hear all of your ideas, and I can respond to them, of course, that way. Or find me in Discord. The link is on the About page of YouTube, obviously. Anyway, thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I also want to say thank you to our patrons that have really helped us out with supporting us. And also, like, just talk in Discord and are helpful. Our Discord community is becoming pretty cool. I like that there are a lot of people there who either know the mechanics or are well versed in the lore or are just freaking creative that help people out making their characters or making their games. It's nice. We're doing a Halloween giveaway. Giving away a bunch of cool looking Halloween dice. The 31st is going to be our Halloween special. It'll be a live stream. Cause like somebody mentioned it in a comment and I'm like, you know what? Why wouldn't I do that? I freaking love Halloween. Obviously. At the end of the live stream is when we'll tell you who won. 3 different times. There's gonna be 3 winners. So if you're interested, check out the video that is going to tell you how we're gonna run it. Anyway, thank you for being here. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.